Good morning, Unity in Marin. Well, this is a much larger group this service than our first. I wonder why. That alarm didn't go off, huh? Well, thank you all for being here on this Daylight Savings Day. And the good news about all that is the days are finally going to get longer for us. Yay. And more of the light. Yippee. So we're going to sing a song called Let Go of the Shore, a beautiful song by Karen Drucker. And it's a waltz if you want to dance. Let go of the shore and let the water carry you. Let go of the shore, float into the mystery. Let go of the shore and let the water carry you. Let go of the shore, float into the mystery. You have all you need, it's all inside of you. Just close your eyes and breathe and know that you are safe. Let go of the shore and let the water carry you. Let go of the shore, float into the mystery. Let go of the shore and let the water carry you. Let go of the shore, float into the mystery. You have all you need, it's all inside of you. Just close your eyes and breathe and know that you are safe. Let go of the shore and let the water carry you. Let go of the shore, float into the mystery.
Let's come together and connect as friends. Let's come together here to heal by caring for ourselves. Let's come together to serve, to find justice and goodness in this world. Today's daylight savings time, and a reminder that we have a choice, that there can be more light than darkness. Let us come today with our prayers and leave with our joy.
Open to the presence now, love is in this place. Open to the light within, feel God's peace and grace. Open to the presence now, love is in this place. Open to the light within, feel God's peace and grace.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Jason. And thank you for Gabe, who's going to give the talk today. He opened us up in prayer this morning. I'm Debbie Sweeney Puma, and I'll be your celebration leader during service today. And I just wanted to remind you that during our first service, we had our children in their family ministry. And so if you know of any other families with children that are interested in exposing them to our community, please let them know that during first service is where we have our children. We are Unity in Marin. We are a spiritual community committed to authenticity and the expression of love and support for each other in living an awakened, enlightened life. We have 3 core commitments. They are to connect, grow, and serve. Please join me in stating our connect commitment. We connect with spirit, inspiring each other, the community, and the world. So we at Unity, at this time, we like to address the recent United Methodist Church decision on gay and clergy and marriage. We are invited to remember that Unity's second principle, because every life is the very essence of the divine, we are all inherently good, perfect, and whole. We all belong. Today we hold in prayer our LGBTQ friends and family, seeing every person as the perfect love of God. The lessons within Black History Month remind us that people of differing races and cultures may experience life differently, but difference does not equal non-acceptance. Additionally, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, and differently sexual individuals may have different life experiences that must be woven into the tapestry of our lives. Rather than non-acceptance, the way forward is working to honor all people, open our hearts and minds to learn more about one another's lives, to speak up when injustices occur, and rise to accept and celebrate all of our humanity together as one. And here a quote from the past. It is from numberless diverse acts of courage and belief that human history is shaped. Each time a man stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring those ripples, build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and injustice. From Senator Robert F. Kennedy. And so we wanted to just let you know that we're here for each other. And at this time, I'd like to invite Heidi and Charcel.
So Charcel and I are here to talk about something really fun and lighthearted. And I have to speak to what Debbie just shared with us. It's so important, and I can tell you personally why. My youngest child, who was born a boy and grew up in this community, came out as transgender last year. And my family and I knew, without a doubt, that we could count on your open minds and hearts and your love and your support. So take that in, and thank you very much. Okay. Yeah. Change of gears. Yeah. We are having a party. Yay! Yeah. And it's our volunteer appreciation party, which we have every year. Everyone is invited, volunteers, potential volunteers, people who think they're volunteers. And it's free for all who attend. And we've expanded an element, and that is it's falling right after Reverend Tim and his wife, Olga Lucia, join us. So it has now become also a welcome and celebration of them joining our community. So in our creativity and our enthusiasm to make it bigger and better, we need more funds. So we are looking for sponsors, people who are willing to contribute $200 as a sponsor to up-level the funds we have available to make this party as great as we want it to be. As a sponsor, you'll get a little plaque that we will put on a table somewhere in the party. It's $200 per sponsorship. If that's too much for your personal budget, grab a buddy or a couple of buddies and get together as a group to sponsor our party. So there you go.
Okay. There are 3 sheets of sign up at my table in Unity Hall. It's very important that you understand these sheets. The first sheet, it says, yes, I'm coming to the party. The party is free, anyone can come, but you need to sign the sheet so that we know how much food to buy. The second one says, yes, I'm helping Charcel decorate the party because we're going to turn this into a 50s diner. Tommy's band's going to be here. It's going to be really wonderful. I can see it all in my head. And you're all going to help me do it. And the third sheet is for all those amazing people who feel that they can help sponsor this glorious event. So come by my table, sign as many sheets as you like, and we will greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this community knows how to party. All right. In addition to our Sunday services, we have Wednesday service. And so this Wednesday is all about meditation and prayer with chamber music. So if that speaks to you, you want to really center yourself and be among common folk and pray together, please join us here on Wednesday. And at this time, I'd like to ask our prayer chaplain, Bonnie, to bring our prayer box forward. We begin our day with prayer and meditation. We are lovingly supported by the one presence and power that breathes life into our being. Great things are unfolding. New energy is stirring in our soul, and we are ever grateful. We have the Christ candle here today to help us pause and remember the words of Jesus. You are the light of the world. From that root awareness, we lovingly allow the light in us to shine for all. Kindness comes naturally to us and flows effortlessly through us. We express our highest and best selves. Thank you, Bonnie. And we're going to take a few moments of silent meditation. So I want you to relax in your chair as I read our word for today, which is insight. This is a great opportunity to drop down into your heart space and take a deep breath. I see my life clearly. The Apostle Paul saw clearly and taught regularly that coming into Jesus consciousness transforms our view of everything, asking, has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? No matter how today's events may unfold, I am never overwhelmed. As I deepen my connection to the Christ mind within, I see beyond worldly appearances to the spiritual truth that underlies everything. My spiritual journey begins with my awareness of the divine power that is God. Infinite divine love is so vast, so unimaginable to my human mind, that I am in awe of its power within me. From 1 Corinthians, what no eye has seen, nor ear heard, nor the human heart conceived, what God has prepared for those who love him. I invite you at this time to breathe in divine spirit that is always everywhere present. Allow infinite divine love to rest in your heart as we spend this time together in the silence. In sight, I see my life clearly.
Alleluia, 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 alleluia.
I have journeyed through the long dark night, out on the open sea. By faith alone, sight unknown, and yet God's eyes were watching me. The anchor holds, though the ship is battered. The anchor holds, though the sails are torn. I have fallen on my knees as I faced the raging seas. The anchor holds in spite of the storm. I've had visions and I've had dreams. I felt I've even held them in my hand. But I never knew how they could slip right through, like they were only grains of sand. And the anchor holds, though the ship is battered. The anchor holds, though the sails are torn. I have fallen on my knees as I faced the raging seas, but the anchor holds in spite of the storm. I have been young, and now as I'm older, I know there has been beauty that these eyes have seen. But it was in the night, through the storms of my life, oh, that's when God's eyes were there for me. And the anchor holds, though the ship may be battered. The anchor holds, though the sails are torn. We have fallen on our knees as we face the raging seas, but the anchor holds in spite of the storm. Yes, I have fallen on my knees as I faced the raging seas, but the anchor holds in spite of the storm.
That was beautiful. Thank you. Well, if you're new and visiting us for the first time, you're here for the first time, we like to be your anchor. We have our welcome team coming forward. In their hands is a packet of information about our community. And we have a welcome table at Unity Hall, and we invite you to come join us there for refreshments and fellowship. All we ask of you is to raise your hand so we can gift you the packet. And if you're watching us online, thank you for joining us. And you can reach out to our administration office, and we'll also send you the information. Welcome. Please join me in stating our GROW commitment. We grow in consciousness through education, healing, and prayer. So we have a lot of things going on here at Unity in Marin. I'm going to highlight just a few of our courses and workshops. Please feel free to visit our website for more in-depth information. But here's 3 that might pique your interest. We have an ongoing series called Is There Life After Death? We invite speakers to come and share their life-death experiences. And so this is going to be done with our featured presenter is Dan Drazen. So join him on a Friday, March 15th. And then the following Wednesday, we have Stephen Halpern's wonderful healing sound, bringing in the spring equinox. So again, if that calls to you and you really want to hear the beautiful music he provides, join us on March 20th. And then our own Jessica Batha will be exploring your spiritual language based on the book Get Over It. And really, some of us really, it's a great opportunity to kind of examine how we speak and how we present ourselves and how we language each other. That took me a long time to get there. And so for you, if you've been speaking a lot and just kind of want to re-examine how you present yourself and how you use your language. And at this time, if everyone would please rise as you are able to sing our statement of truth.
All right, this is the updated version, so we're going to be doing it a few weeks now. There is only one power, only one presence, active in the universe and my life. There is only one power, only one presence, active in the universe and my life. Hallelujah, hallelujah. There is only one power in my life. Hallelujah, hallelujah. There is only one power in my life.
Woohoo! We are so blessed. Oh, and you picked a good day to be here because you are in for something very moving and powerful and special. So just remember that last song I did, and as we move forward. Take all my vicious words and turn them into something good. Take all my preconceptions and let the truth be understood. Take all my prized possessions, leave only what I need. Take all my pieces of doubt and let me be what's underneath. Courage is when you're afraid, but you keep on moving anyway. Courage is when you're in pain, but you keep on living anyway.
why, living in fear, something in us dies. Like a bird with broken wings, it's not how high he flies, but the song he sings. Courage is when you've lost your way, but you find your strength anyway. Courage is when you're afraid, but you keep on living anyway. Yes, courage is when it all seems gray. Courage is when you make a change. And courage is when you're in doubt, that you keep on living anyway. And you keep on moving anyway. Yes, you keep on giving anyway. Oh, you keep on loving anyway. Courage is when you're afraid, but you find your strength anyway.
Thank you, Deborah, and thank you, Jason, and thank you, Debbie. My name is Gabe Paulson, and I'm just feeling so happy to be here today. As many of you know, I've been part of this community for a number of years and have been serving in different capacities, but today I just really wanted to connect with you. I think we've been through a lot in the last 9 months as a community, as a congregation, and for me it's been a lot of administrative things and fundraising, and I really haven't had a chance to sit down and pray or be close in that way that we do here. And I felt today was my chance. So I also have to warn you, this is my first talk, so go easy on me. We have a section for booing and hissing. I'll let you know when that comes. But more seriously, I chose a topic that's very emotional for me, and I'll get into that in a second. And it's sometimes hard to fight back, the emotions, but I trust that this is such a safe place. It's such a sacred place that it's really okay, and hopefully it's something that's meaningful for you too. So by way of intro, I've been a worship assistant. I've been up here for 3 years now, and not as funny as Debbie, but doing my best to hold my stuff together. And then I've been on the board of trustees as the president for 1.5 years, and we've journeyed through this together. I'm actually just so proud of you as a community and proud of everything we've done. I mean, I'm looking out and seeing this incredible commitment. We've been with an acting minister, but really, how many churches or spiritual communities would fall apart at this point? But there are such deep roots, and I felt it over and over again, and it's another reason I want to be here a couple weeks before our new minister comes. I just want to celebrate one more time that not only did we find a minister, we found ourselves more as a community in all this search process, and I just feel incredibly proud, really proud of you all. And one other thing I did here for 8 years is I was a prayer chaplain, and because I'm a guy who likes to count, I think I probably did about 3,000 prayers. And it's been with so many of you. I'm looking at your faces, and I remember people saying, I just got divorced, or I have cancer, or my child just committed suicide. And the number of times I've had to fight back tears, but the number of times I've seen this incredible courage really led me to the topic for today, which is the spirit of courage. And that's really what I want to talk about. And before getting into too many details, I just wanted to let you know why I chose that topic in a little more depth, 2 reasons, and then how I want to talk about courage, because I think it's almost not a theoretical thing, it's really something we live, and how do you even talk about it? So one reason I want to talk about courage is really when you look at this first slide, It's not coincidental that those are all women up there, and Friday was, after all, International Women's Month. Yay! And I feel that much of my life has been coming to appreciate the strength of the feminine. And I think in this particular setting, where men have often been the religious leaders, I think the Mary Magdalenes and the different figures of the feminine in the Hindu tradition and whatnot, they really emphasize that religion is a whole, that we take those parts and put them together. In Unity, we celebrate that. And not only celebrate that, we emphasize that. And so the woman on the far right is Myrtle Fillmore, and she's one of the co-founders of Unity with her husband. And one line about her stands out for today's topic, and she wrote that by the time she got to her 20s, she had experienced so much physical and mental anguish, she can't imagine anybody could have had more pain and suffering in her life. And yet when we read about her and her words and all that, it all seems so positive. And I think that's a testament of courage. And the woman next to her is Maya Angelou, who is an incredible poet, I find. I love her words, I love her message, I love her social justice. And one of her poems in particular, it resonates with me. It's Still I Rise. And many of you may remember Bill Clinton actually selected her as the poet laureate, very much like John F. Kennedy had picked Robert Frost. And her words really, I think, express courage. She languages courage well. And then the woman to your far left there doesn't have a name. I don't know who she is. But to me, she represents millions. Millions from that time. This is World War II. You know, she's got 3 kids, and maybe it's her home behind her that's just been bombed. But it's happening every day. It's happening in the Sudan. It's happening everywhere, in Myanmar. And it's women like this that have to carry on. And it's really women like this that have inspired me, and it's what I want to talk about. So the woman, for me, was my grandmother, and she lived through World War II with 5 children, and I'll tell you a little bit more about her in a few minutes. So that's one reason, is the matriarchs, and for those of us who are guys, it's really all of us. All of us live courage, but I think it's a good time to emphasize the female. And the other slide here is the second reason I think courage is important. And this is a quote from Maya Angelou, which will come up. And essentially what she's saying is that there's a lot of virtues out there. And in this community, we use the 5 principles, or we call them the 12 powers. Whatever you want to call them, there's a kind of light that we want to go to. Love and wisdom and imagination. But for her, courage is first. You need courage to even practice love, or to practice wisdom, or to practice imagination. It's a bold claim. I'm not sure it's true, but I love it. I love it especially when you think about the New Testament, where St. Paul says, there's faith, there's hope, there's love, but love is the first. Love is number one. And if you've been here for a while in this community, to me, that's really what feels like what we practice. We do practice love. But do we remember, or do we think of it sometimes the other way, that it's the strength, what's often associated with the man, the male, the valor, the soldier, that precedes the love, the nurture, the woman. And I think that those two flow together, that it is courage that makes virtue possible. But then I think of it in the other direction as well. Is there really courage without love? Are you going to be very courageous if you don't forgive through love? Is there really courage without wisdom? You have to be wise to see the bright side, to see the positive. It isn't just happy, happy. And can you really be courageous without imagination? Because sometimes that's all you have to see light in the darkness. So those are my reasons. I feel that this community and our teachings really want us to speak about courage. And I really felt, as a prayer chaplain, former, and someone who prayed 3,000 times or whatever is in my spreadsheet, that I wanted to do a prayer with you. I'm not thinking of this as a talk. This is a chance to connect. And that's why I'm grateful, and that's why I'm happy. I've been doing fundraising and writing offer letters and doing administrative things, and I haven't had a chance to connect. And this is the moment. 2 weeks before a new minister arrives, we the people, we the congregation, that really is bringing something to him, will invite him to bring something to us, and we'll have a prayer together. So, with the two reasons, I also want to say, how am I going to talk about this? I don't have a lot of time, and I noticed there's a clock back there. So what I noticed as being a worship assistant for 3 years is that the piano is on this side of the stage, and all the beautiful music, and when you heard Deborah and Jason and all the incredible musicians we have, it seems to speak to the intuitive, to the nonverbal. And then over here, we read, we talk. And I thought I would kind of work with that stage left, stage right. I almost think if you were a psychologist, you would say, well, that's interesting. That's, what's actually on your left is going into your right brain and vice versa, and one is more intuitive, et cetera. Whatever that is, it doesn't matter. I think in life, we separate things. If you've ever left your home, a spouse, a situation, there's something you left behind. And then there's a place where you live now. And those two need to talk. And so what I did is I put my grandmother's diary here, which it's something that I have a hard time thinking about without some level of emotion. And what happened is I found her words and translated them and kind of want to read little snippets so it doesn't take too long. And then over here, we just had Bonnie bring up the prayer box. And we were reminded by Debbie that this is kind of our light, our brightness. And so here in the prayer box, I put my 3 favorite prayers. We all know them. We say them together, and I've done them in chaplaincy. And so what I wanted to do is to kind of get a little bit into this part of my past, this part that is quite heavy and brings tears, and then move over to the part that's given comfort and joy, and let those meet in front of you. And I know this is your story too. We're all kind of cut from the same cloth. So a little more about my grandmother. She was, in some ways, a very extraordinary woman, and in some ways, she was ordinary. When I think of her, I think of some of the women in this congregation, which is one reason I was inspired to do this. We had our first minister, Candida Wright, and then we had a wonderful woman who started the prayer chaplaincy with others, Betty Martin, whom I knew and passed. And then another woman, Arlene Halligan. She used to sit with me together sometimes, and she passed, recently as well. All of them matriarchs. The common theme, strong, loving. And that's what she was. She was born in 1910. She was born in a part of Germany that's close to Russia. It was on the eastern side. She was the eldest of 6. She married young, 19 years old. She had 5 kids. Later she had 1 more, but 5 for the story. And she had a happy childhood. She really had a good life. She came into this with joy, and there was some privilege, and I feel it comes on the light side here. It's just really beautiful. Living in Marin, I think my own life, how can I integrate with the way my parents, having come from World War II, how they raised me. And she started with that. But things started getting darker. In the 1930s, we know, and some of you have parents or maybe even glimpses of this yourself, the Great Depression, the wars. And then it got darker, and people started leaving the small village that she was living in with the kids, and there was a sense of doom, of gloom, I should say. One day, someone knocked on the door from the authorities and said, "We need your husband. He's got to go to the war effort." And he was 47. hardly the age you would draft somebody. But it really was a sign of the times. Things had completely fallen apart. For the Germans, and we know a lot of the evils and atrocities, but for the ordinary Germans, they had just gone to Stalingrad, where about 1.5 million people died. Can you imagine? 500 9/11s. Our one 9/11 changed our politics and our society. 500 of those in one battle. And that wave was coming. So there she was, alone with the 5 kids, the husband now gone, and what chances does he have at 47? And so I always imagine her writing this story in the kitchen. I really like this symbol of the kitchen, and I think of this as the place where you feed the family. It's the place where you find community. We're in community here on a Sunday, and when you go home, hopefully you'll have about 21 of those gatherings in your own home, in your kitchen. And I kind of visualize her writing this story, which she did when she was 70 at the request of her son. And I just imagine her trying to dredge up all that happened, and she did it with such detail. And so as I translated this, I have to say I got closer and closer to her. It was in German, and I spent about 2 weeks putting it into English and then trying to frame it, because it was really just a diary, and I wanted to turn it into a story. And so if you would close your eyes for a second, I just want to get into some of her words. And she's sitting in the kitchen, and the year was 1945, thousands of miles from here. And it was wintertime, it was cold. And she writes that suddenly, on a Sunday morning at 5 o'clock, a fire siren went off. What's going on? The radio wasn't broadcasting anymore. There's no TV or internet. People just clicked on, but there was static. Nobody knew what was happening. In the distance, there were faint pops of artillery, buzzes of aircraft. A little later, the first sign of our invaders appeared. Like an army of ants crawling on the white snow, the first Russian tanks could be seen, approaching the kitchen window. The sound of gunshots got louder and louder as the army got closer. Soon the infantry soldiers were approaching the houses. And then a group of soldiers burst into the house. So there she was in the kitchen in my imagination, seeing this, and probably huddled up the 5 kids. And what are you going to do? Lay low and hope nobody sees you. And the first thing, when the soldiers banged into the house, they screamed, "Watches, watches." In Russian, "Uri, uri." They were there to steal. The first act of conquest sometimes is plunder. Watches, combs, dishes, books, money, jewelry, anything, out the house, off. And then they took over. That nice, calming kitchen I talked about became their place for livestock. They brought in some pigs, ran around, slaughtered them there, knocked out some holes in the house, did what they wanted, and then there were about 17 soldiers in the house encamped. And there's probably a lot of hunger. She mentioned that there wasn't food, and they would eat porridge and basically whatever scraps were left. They were out in the snow, they would get in the morning and try to feed themselves. So really, really just a shock to the system, hard times. But I think one of the hardest things that she doesn't go into detail, she mentions that when soldiers come into a house, they may say watches, but what they want are women. And just from the documentation, we know that the city of Berlin was eventually invaded by the Russians, and 100,000 women were raped, just from the medical records in the hospitals. It could have been more. So she just wrote, "I kept my clothes on. I never, ever took my clothes off at night and slept far away on a couch. But whatever it was, I just imagine the paralysis, the fear, the dread. It isn't some stalker or sexual predator out there. It's 17 soldiers in the house. Where do you find courage? Where's the light? And so one of my favorite prayers around this topic is one we know all the time, say all the time here. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Really? Well, I think it did. I think these things were real. And I think even though she may not have said these words, these are universal words, because that prayer was written by James Dillett Freeman in 1940. So he wrote this at Unity Village, Christmas time. What had happened is the Americans, people of the Unity tradition, were emailing Unity Village asking for a prayer for protection. 1939 was the start of that war. It wasn't even close to that. We hadn't had Pearl Harbor. That came the next year in 41. But we knew what was happening. The same darkness that was coming to the village of my grandmother was happening here too. And we're sitting in that space. This is an Air Force base. This, when I went to the museum, was a railroad track for munitions, pretty much right by my feet. We have turned those swords into plowshares. But that was a time. And James Dillett Freeman basically took the Lord is my shepherd, Psalm 23, and he put it in a language for unity. And there's a runway there that was the first flight that the soldiers here took to Pearl Harbor off of the airway about 400 yards from here, and many of them died. And so it all began for all of us. And that prayer of protection was actually carried forward to the 1960s. The first astronauts took that prayer with them to the moon. So to me, that is where we find courage. And that is actually how the story unfolds. So for her, for example, one of those soldiers, he was a physicist, educated man from Kharkiv, a remote part of Russia. And he was a kind man. So at night, the window would open and he'd slip her some bread. And for all I know, he kind of kept an eye on her and out of harm's way from the other soldiers. And eventually, the spring came, like daylight savings time. The light did prevail. And the dogs of war got their leashes. And life returned to normal, as it always does. So I think that the prayer for protection is what keeps us going, because sometimes we have to use imagination. Sometimes we have to have a leap of faith just to put the one foot in front of the other. But it didn't stay calm for long. And so a couple years later, after things stabilized, she wrote, "On Saturday, November 9th, 1946, the authorities sent us an order, written in Polish, that we had to leave our village the next day. We were only allowed to take what we could carry, including food, for 3 weeks. Strangely, I felt no regret about giving up our belongings, nor did I worry about what lay ahead of us. I was numb. I just went through the motions mechanically. Winter was approaching, and it's as if everything had already died inside of me." So as much as she got through it, I think that line reminds me that courage is not the same as joy. And how about many of us here? We do inspire each other. We do put one foot in front of the other, but we sometimes have to go through a dark winter. And we just keep going through the dark winter. And so the truck came and threw all the kids in the back, and they got to the first refugee camp, which was probably a building about this size. It was a seminary building, and they had measured it off precisely for 200 people. So 200 people could sit on their suitcases with their feet tucked up, and that was it. Don't move. And so day in, day out, you got one bowl of food, and she wrote often there were insects in them you couldn't even eat, so you're getting kind of hungry. And the kids were sick, and she's trying to do home remedies. And then the older people are dying, and they just clear them out of the hallways, and off you go. And from there, on a train again, and they went off, and then the train would stop in the middle of the snow, and they would rob it, again, watches or whatever they asked for. And this continued, cold and hunger. And there's a slide there, which once I had read her story and translated, I just got on Google Maps and pinned, because I really wanted to plot out this journey. I wanted this to be my personal Lent. Just as we go through the 12 stations of the cross, these are my family's stations of the cross. And so the green pins were some of the places they stopped and were held for some time, and they moved on and they moved on. And one thing really stands out for me. I think it was just such an authentic and emotional diary. And she wrote, "Perhaps surprisingly, we were always cheerful and content. We did not complain, but instead enjoyed the beautiful nature, sang a lot, and gathered for prayer every night." And I don't know about you, but I've seen this before. I've traveled a lot in the world. I've been in Africa and Latin America and many countries. And I think sometimes of South Africa, the southwestern province in Soweto, and I've seen the choir and the way they sing and the joy they have. And I've heard that of Namibia, and I've seen it in Ecuador. People with very little often get more joy. And when we talk about prosperity here, sometimes I want to take this side of the room and bring it over to that side of the room and remind us it's not the car, it's not the house, it's not the bank account. There's something else we're after. And I think the spirit of courage is that fire that distills the vanities away and reminds us of what makes us really happy, what brings joy. So there was something there. There was some joy. And I also love, to me, the inspiring prayer is the one that we just did before we started this little talk, and that's, "There is only one power, there is only one presence." And I think we call that the statement of truth. And it really is, there's the sort of 5 unity principles, which I think distill down to saying there's only one power. I have to practice it, I need to do prayer, but essentially we're saying there's only one power, it's good, and it's active in my life. And I'm not sure that's a statement of truth, to be honest with you. I think it's a statement of choice. I think you have to really be on some heavy drugs to think that things are just all good, and good is the only power in the universe. If you have your eyes open, there's no doubt how much suffering and pain there is. But what do you choose? And I think that's what that line in the diary really meant to me. She chose to see nature, to see the joy, to sing, to be happy. And that's a choice we always have, even if it feels like we're walking uphill. And so, kind of to wrap up, her diary and her story, what happened then was, they got through that journey, and as you can see from the Google Maps, it kind of got close to the border of, South Germany. And at the time, the powers that be, the same ones that knocked on the door and said, "You go, you don't belong here anymore, this isn't your house." At Potsdam, I think those same powers said, there's going to be an East Germany, there's going to be a West Germany. And she happened to be in the East Germany because she was coming from that side. And that was the part that Russia controlled, that was communist, or the Soviet Union at the time. And the Western side was where America was, and France, and England. So she was with her 4 children on the eastern side, and then over on the western side, through some correspondence, she found out that her husband, who was wounded very quickly and shuttled off, had landed in the American sector. So that was really like the Statue of Liberty. That was a place to go for freedom. The problem with all that was that the authorities basically said, if you are the nuclear family, the mother and the 5 kids, then the father has to come over that way. So they would go into the Soviet side. And that was unacceptable. I think they knew enough, what they had gone through in some ways paled by comparison to what had happened under Stalin. And so my grandmother made a decision that she would make up a story. Basically, the story was she was dead. So here you have 5 orphans, and the rules are different. 5 orphans can go over to the west side, to the Americans, to the father, and then she would be left to figure out how to get over herself. And so she got them on the train, and they got to safety, and they were reunited. And then she herself got on the train and got as close to the border as possible, but there weren't really any maps or a lot of geography and so forth, so she just kind of got off and took that biblical leap of faith to walking on water. And so she started walking through the woods, through the fields, and the one line that I think is really moving to me from her diary is where she wrote, "Alone, I stood there in the cool morning air, trembling with fear and abandonment. Where do I go next? When I heard a dog bark, I imagined the police patrol was pursuing me." So she, in some ways, to me, was making the ultimate journey. I think we really have symbolized this in the Christian tradition, where the Christ starts at Good Friday on a cross and somehow ends up resurrected and alive. And however you interpret that, I think there's a part of your life, a part of all of our lives that works that way, that you have to somehow cross over from fear and abandonment to community, to spirit, to love. And she basically started walking and saw a sign that said, 200 meters to the border. Great, I'm close. Next one, not so great, 100 meters, trespassers will be shot. So probably snipers, who knows? And she wrote that at that point, the pain in her stomach was so great, and you can imagine cumulatively from the beginning of all this till 2 years later, the pain in her stomach was so great that she just lay on the floor so that the warmth of the earth could kind of soothe her belly. Whether that was ulcers or she wrote something about biliary colic. And I think of that hunched position as another symbol of like the Christ falling. And then my last prayer, and one of my favorite prayers, which we don't do so often here at Unity, is the Maya Angelou prayer. It's her poem. I don't know if she thought of it as a prayer. Do you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. You may want to shoot me with your words. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I rise. Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope, springing high, still I rise. An African-American woman facing racism, sexism, God knows what else. A white German woman trying to crawl. The last part was to find the family, and it was at an air base, maybe similar to Hamilton, but it was a 30-minute climb, and still she rose. She climbed and climbed. And finally, there was the family waiting for her at the door. So life got back to normal eventually, and one thing she did say is that even though people say time heals all wounds, I have never fully recovered from the punishment on my body and nerves. And I met her. I was there 2 summers and spent time in Germany, and again, I felt her love and I felt her strength, and maybe I never saw what was broken in her. But I have to believe that she practiced courage every day. I have to believe that she used love to forgive whatever happened with those soldiers or in that house, and she had to take the wisdom of all those experiences and somehow see that life is still good and somehow use her imagination. And the part that really, I think, struck me after all this, translation and like my own moment of prayers with this, was how the story had already been written. And I think that's what we do with each other as a community. We write stories in each other's hearts. Your parents, if you have children or nephews or friends or loved ones, we're writing stories and diaries right now, and they're sometimes nonverbal, they're not scripted, but they're very powerful. And as I translated, I realized I already knew this story. And I think you do too. I think all of you have gone through this in different forms. It may not be a Steven Spielberg type World War II story, but how many of you have walked the walk of courage? And the thing is, you never know when your Job moment will arrive. Just like in the Old Testament, Job lost it all, and he cursed God. And some of you have already been through your Job moment, and you're probably ready to be teachers, to teach other people. And that happens here. I've been a student here of courage, and some of those women, they really have been my teachers. And I think moving forward as a community, that's why we're here today. That's why there's so much to be proud of. And that's why we'll be here tomorrow. Because these are the diaries, the scripts, the texts that the Betty Martins, the Candida Wrights, that the many people have written in all of our hearts. And every time you come here on a Sunday, they're further written, whether you know it or not. When Unity was started 54 years ago, there was no beautiful building like this. And there was, at one point, a church in Larkspur, the Masonic Lodge, which was rented. And every Sunday, basically, there was a sign that had to go up, and at the end of the service, it had to come down. The sign said, "Enter prayerfully, leave joyfully." And I think that's the journey we make from one side to the other. We come in with our concerns and our prayers, but we're called here not to flagellate and think of deeper flaws in ourselves, but to find the joy and the light. So I invite you to hold the hand of the person next to you. And let's make that final connection between your stage left and your stage right. And as you hold that person, I also invite you to feel the spirit of my grandmother. Her name was Eve. And Candida Wright, and Betty Martin, and Arlene Halligan, and the numerous people of you who have the same heroic journey. Let's connect with each other in spirit. Let's find courage as we say our affirmation and we say our denial. So we affirm that courage is a path to my divinity. And then together, let's say denial with courage. I let go of fear. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, this isn't a standing ovation. I forgot I have to bless the offerings because Medora isn't here. Anyway, thank you. I really wanted to share prayer with you, and I feel we prayed together. So this is the part of the service where we're called to support this place materially as well. So as the baskets come around, I ask you just to first go in your heart and feel the love, the gratitude, the bounty, and then if there's something to give to keep us going, please do so. Thank you.
Just as we give, so we receive. Richly we live in one golden weave. There is nothing that we can lack. We give from love, and love gives it back. Just as we give, so we receive. Richly we live in one golden weave. There is nothing that we can lack. We give from love. love gives it back.
Thank you, Gabe, for your courage to share that story.
Climb every mountain, search high and low, follow every byway, every path you know. Climb every mountain, ford every stream, follow every rainbow, till you find your dream, a dream that will need all the love you can give. Every day of your life, for as long as you live, climb every mountain and ford every stream, follow every rainbow till you find your dream, a dream that will need all the love you can give. Every day of your life, for as long as you live, and climb every mountain, ford every stream, and follow every rainbow till you find your dream.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Jason. Let's bless our offerings. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I live, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. Thank you.
Oh, God. Didn't get better the second time around. Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Oh, my gosh. Okay. Thank you, Deborah. That was beautiful. Thank you, Jason. And Gabe, thank you so much for sharing your story. And as Gabe said, we all have similar stories. Just different people, different characters, but the stories are the same. And we're blessed to have you. So, okay. Please join me in stating our serve commitment. We serve spirit, community, and the world with love, joy, and a sense of adventure. Okay, we really got a lot going on, so I'm going to go through it as quickly as possible. We're having a jewelry sale. The youth is doing a fundraiser, and so they're collecting your jewelry, so please bring your jewelry because I shop there. I like brooches, so bring me your brooches. I got a bracelet at the sale, at the jewelry sale. It's actually a Tiffany bracelet that I got at that sale. So they have some great stuff. So if you have any of that stuff, bring it, bring it. And then we have, on St. Patty's Day, we're having a bake sale, again, for the youth of Unity. And then I need you to channel Marie Kondo. And whatever's ever at your house that's not bringing you joy, bring it here at Circulation Day. Because I've gotten some great office furniture here. And there's no money exchange. So if you've never been, there's no money that exchange. If you don't bring anything, that's okay. You can take whatever. It's just whatever you can use, take. Make sure it brings you joy, though. So that's fine. And then I totally, because of my tears, I misread this next thing. I thought they were taking automobile donations, but I was crying, and so I couldn't really read it. That's not what that says. Don't bring us your old autos. We don't know what to do with it. We will not know what to do with them. It's for those who do auto debit. Go pick up the cards to put in the basket. I was so off. So if you're on auto debit, pick up cards. Don't leave your cars. Okay. Lou Brown, who does a fabulous job with our hospitality table. He needs help. So this is the serve commitment. If you can prep, serve, or help him clean, that would be lovely. He's been doing this so many years, and he would really love your help. So if you can do it on an ongoing basis or one time, please see him there. And then we're always looking for hospitality and flower sponsors. So you want to see Charcel in Unity Hall. Our hospitality sponsor today is Marilyn Kolchar. She's doing it for her husband's birthday. And will all the prayer chaplains please rise? These are members of our community who make themselves available after each service to pray with you. So we're feeling a lot today. We're feeling a lot. So if you need to share, please tap them on your shoulders, on their shoulders, and they'll spend time with you in prayer and meditation today. And will everyone please rise to say our prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are. And let's sing our song of peace.